All right, so this is the Black Cauldron book group. Hope you can see everybody. Melissa, Bailey, John Paul, Kelsey,
Kenzie.
yeah, Kenzie or Mackenzie. Okay, and we are going to give our opinions of the book, starting with Mackenzie.
I thought the book was well written. It's personally not like the genre I read. I said personally twice. It's fine. It's not really the genre I read, but for what it is, it's a really good book. I think it's actually kind of fun to read. I might start reading this genre.
At first, I really did not like the book, to be honest with you. I thought that the main character, Tehran, she told me that's how it's pronounced. I thought he was a whiny little brat, because he pretty much cried throughout the entirety of the beginning. But the more I read, I really started getting into it around chapters 13, 14, 15, when they, your chapters, when they finally met the witches.
I thought the book was pretty good. This is the type of genre that I kind of like reading. It was kind of hard to follow because I didn't read the first book, so it was kind of tough getting to know all the characters and stuff. But I thought it was well written, and I enjoyed reading it.
Okay, so I liked this book. It's kind of one of the genres I read, like Harry Potter and magical creatures and whatnot. I'd like to read the other books. I thought it was interesting. I've seen the Disney movie. I know it's not like it in certain ways, but it was really good.
When I first heard that we read this book, I was excited because I remembered the Disney movie. So it's not anything like it, but it was still pretty good. And I liked it because it was I do kind of like books like this because there's a journey to it and they have to overcome things. And I thought the plot was good too. So I really liked it.
You know what? I kind of agree with her too. It was more of an epic tale in a sense. The more you got into it, the more things came out and it started making more sense and you were drawn into the story, the deeper they went.
Mm-hmm.
So, do your chapters.
Alright, so I had chapters 1 through 4. It's kind of uneventful, honestly. The first chapter, everyone comes to Caer Daliban. All the princes and kings and stuff come there and they have their meeting. And chapter 2, they talk about what's happening, and the evil guy, Aron or something, has this cauldron and has been using it to make undead warriors, I guess. And they've even killed alive people and use it to do that. And so that's their problem, and that's why they're meeting. Then chapter 3, they begin their journey to the evil guy's place, Anuvan, I think, is the name of the place. And at the end of chapter 3, they're just waiting for all the people, they carried out their plan and they're just waiting on the results now. And then chapter 4, the guy comes back with his results. There's this invisible guy that scouted the whole place, I guess, and he came back with his results, and they said that there is no cauldron, that it's been moved or stolen from the evil guy. So that's pretty much my chapters.
I had chapters 5 through 8. I can't really break them down because it was all a blur to me. So what happened in those chapters was basically after everyone figured out that the cauldron was gone, the group with Dolly and Tehran and Adaon, something like that, they were they met up with the princess and Gurgi, sorry. It's a funny name. Gurgi. They had met up with them, much to the surprise of the group, because they weren't supposed to tag along. Shortly after that, what happened was the huntsmen found their pack and started attacking them. And Tehran noticed when he looked over his shoulder, when they were first running up, that the huntsmen, instead of looking like men, they looked like beasts with these pelts covering their body and long, sharp daggers. Long story short, he got attacked. A leader, the jerk, who did not like Turan, ended up attacking one of the huntsmen before he killed Turan. Unfortunately, after he killed that huntsman, the entire group of huntsmen grew stronger because they didn't really heed the advice that they were given. So once they grew stronger, Dolly actually turned himself invisible, went around all these huntsmen and took their weapons away from them and threw it into the brush. After which point, everyone started to flee the scene because they wanted to get away from the huntsmen as soon as possible. Once they fled, they came upon a clearing in a forest, and Dolly thought that it looked pretty familiar. It looked like a portal to him, so he stuck his head into a log, or into a dead tree, started yelling at somebody. Nobody in the group knew who it was initially. After many back and forth banterings and Gwistel, who ended up being in that log, they were finally let in. Once they were in this portal, it turned out to be a giant hall on one end and then something more natural and rigid on the other side. Gwistel the entire time was reiterating how he didn't want company. He didn't want anyone in there. He didn't feel well. He didn't like the idea of them being there. And shortly after they were let in, Taryn revealed that they were there looking for the cauldron. Dolly noticed that Gwistel was acting pretty funny, so he demanded to know what was going on with him because he wasn't being honest about what was happening and what he knew. Turns out his pet crow, Caw, gave up the names of the 3 people who stole the cauldron. It was Orgok, Ordu, Orwin. Orduk, Ordu, Orwin. Sorry, it's a mouthful.
They're like witches or something.
Yeah,
like
they're witches, but he told them that after the fact, and then he told them that they resided in the marshes of Marvu. Marvel, yeah.
Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they went back and forth bantering, deciding whether or not they should go and pursue it or meet back up at Caer Dalbin, which is what they were advised to do by the other kings. Well, Taryn said that they should go find it. Elwain, however you pronounce her name, disagreed. Dolly agreed with her, saying that they really do need to find their elders and come up with a plan. And of course, a leader, being the confident warrior that he is, decided that he was going to get it with or without the help of the group. So after that, it was kind of decided that everyone was going to the marshes to seek out this cauldron. Well, on their way, they were journeying and decided that they needed to stop right around dawn and take a rest during daylight so they wouldn't be seen. As soon as they took a rest, Turan noticed that a leader was with his steed, and there was something going on with her. He thought that she had turned lame. She didn't. He ended up having to pick a rock out of her hoof, much to the dismay of Eliter, because, again, he's too confident to let anyone help him. After that point, he went on his own way, kind of sat with his steed while everyone else in the group sat together, because he's kind of an outsider, and he makes himself that way on purpose. When they were all together, Taryn asked Adaon, the dreamer, what he had dreamt about, and he gave up the information previously for everyone else that he dreamt about except his own position in his dream. So he did tell him about the beautiful dream that he had, and that led to him saying that if he were ever to befall an ill fate, he wanted Taryn to take something from him. And here's an excerpt from the book. "But I would speak to you of another matter," Adaon went on. His handsome face, usually tranquil, was clouded. "I have few possessions, for I count them of little importance. But these few I treasure, Lueger," his horse, "my packets of healing herbs, and this," he said, touching the clasp at his throat. "The brooch I wear, a special gift from Arianlin, my betrothed. Should any ill befall me, they are yours. I have watched you closely, Taryn of Caer Dalbin. In all my journeys, I have met no one else to whom I would rather entrust them." And it's important to share that excerpt because that brooch ends up being a bargaining tool. and 12.
Okay, so I had 9 through 12, and so with that class, after Adon dies and his dream comes true about him dying, so here's my excerpt from my chapter. He is content dying here in the warm place that they settled in, and what happens is Adon, gives the class to him, and he suddenly becomes Tyron suddenly becomes wiser with this class in the other chapters. And then in the same chapter, in chapter 9, they find out that how do you say his name? Fluder says that Doyley's missing, so he's MIA somewhere, and then so
We're sorry for mispronunciations.
yeah, serious. And then so he's MIA, and they continue on with the trip. So in chapter 10, pages 93 to 94, they find a cottage in the marsh, and they just kind of start looking in it, and they see that nobody's home, and they kind of just want to go in and peer it out. And what led them to the marsh was that iron clasp that Adon gave him, so it came in handy. He became wiser. He just kind of knew what was going to happen through the feelings of the clasp. And then in chapter 11, it was basically with the 3 witches. They talked to them about turning them into all toads, and how it would be better that they lived their life as toads and they wouldn't worry about the huntsman and all of that. But once the Tyron